Welcome everyone to our webinar, Advising Aging Clients and Their Families, How to Plan Now to Avoid Crisis Later. Thank you for taking the time to join us today. My name is Melinda Merk. I'm a principal in the Wills Trust and Estates Group at McCandlish Lillard. And before I get to introducing our other presenters, I just wanted to go over a few housekeeping items. Today's presentation is geared specifically towards financial and other trusted advisors, and one of our goals is to assist you in advising your aging clients and their families by learning again about resources and options that are available in particularly in the areas of care management and daily money management. Hopefully by adding these resources as another tool in your toolbox, we hope this will help you to provide value to your clients, to plan ahead and to avoid crisis situations, and more importantly, know who to call when a crisis occurs. My partner Liz Gray and I will also talk about how these issues intersect with estate planning, particularly when it comes to planning for incapacity. We're going to provide you with an overview of the guardianship process, which many clients and their families will unfortunately face if the client does not have the proper estate planning documents in place to assist with making financial and healthcare decisions. We're also going to try to talk a bit about elder fraud and what to do if you suspect that your client is at risk for elder fraud or elder abuse, and offer other tips to help your aging clients and their families to be prepared if and when a crisis situation occurs. So a few other housekeeping items. We are going to be sure to allow for sufficient time for questions at the end. You can see down at the bottom of your screen, there's a Q&A button. So please submit your questions and we'll be sure to go through as many as we can. At the end of the presentation, feel free to also email us. We have our generic inbox there at Trust Estate at McCann Law, where you can email us if you'd like a copy of the slides. And we will be recording, or we are recording this presentation, and we hope to, we will be posting the recording on our website as soon as that becomes available. Please also be sure to follow us on LinkedIn and Facebook, and also submit us any feedback or suggestions you may have for future webinar topics. We would love to hear from you and get your insight. So it's my pleasure now to introduce my other presenters for today. I've mentioned my law partner, Elizabeth Gray, who, as many of you know, is amongst the go-to experts in the DC area in the areas of elder law, special needs planning, and guardianships and conservatorships, as well as estate planning and estate and trust administration. And then it's my particular pleasure to introduce our two guest speakers, Nancy Fagan, who's the Executive Director of Elder Tree Care Management Services. As a certified care manager with the Aging Life Care Association, Nancy has over 25 years of long-term care experience. Both Liz and I can attest that Nancy has a passion and a very unique ability to handle particularly challenging cases which often involve guardianships and other litigation and conflicts where there may be discord among family members. Our other guest speaker today is Leah Nichaman, who's founder and president of Everyday Money Management. Leah is a certified daily money manager and is the immediate past president of the American Association of Daily Money Managers, which Leah will tell us a bit more about later. So we thought we would start off with just a couple common scenarios which many of you have probably seen, as many of our clients are aging and living longer. Oftentimes, the client experiences a fall or other medical issue that can lead to their hospitalization and then rehab. Then there's the need for, how do we transition them home and bring in home health care? Or if they they may also need to transition from their home to a more age-friendly living environment or assisted living facility. And so these sorts of crisis situations, including the stress and anxiety that we're all experiencing now with the COVID-19 pandemic, they can also lead to a gradual or sudden decline also in the client's cognitive abilities and the ability to manage their own financial affairs, pay bills, and that sort of thing. So it's oftentimes in these situations that it's the adult children or other trusted family member or individual who we are hearing from, because they often don't even know the right questions to ask or even where to begin when it comes to handling the client's health care or financial matters. So this first scenario, and these are somewhat loosely based on real life client situations. We've of course changed the names and altered the facts a bit, but this first scenario, it was a client situation that I'm currently dealing with, and Linda is a widower. Her husband passed away several years ago. She lives alone in one of the older homes in McLean, so she's got lots of flights of stairs to go up and down, and she has two children. Unfortunately, neither of them are local, and they're very busy with their full-time jobs and families. But Linda remains fiercely independent at age 91. She still drives, and because it was her husband who really handled the finances, she's got various bank and investment accounts spread across different financial institutions. He has no real primary financial advisor. And she also owns several real estate, vacation homes and rental property. And so lots of moving parts. And she, typical scenarios, she did recently fall and was in the hospital and then in rehab. And that's when we heard from the children as to how can we step in and take over the finances and the bill paying. The papers are piling up in her house, and the CPA can't even get information that he needs to get the tax returns filed. So those haven't been filed yet. And she's also, I guess, kind of the worst part about it is she's very resistant, as a lot of elderly clients are who've been independent their entire life. She's very resistant and distrustful to bringing any home health care assistance into the home, or allowing even her children to step in and help with the management of her finances. Now, fortunately, she does have the proper estate planning documents in place. She has a financial power of attorney, she has a healthcare power of attorney, and she has a revocable trust, of which one of her sons is named as agent and co-trustee. So he has that ability, and so we are currently working to consolidate the accounts and make sure things have all been properly retitled into her revocable trust. The clients are concerned about what if she falls again, and they do see that bills are starting to fall through the cracks, and she's getting checks, dividend checks that aren't being deposited and all that sort of thing. So we are hoping to bring in both a care manager and a daily money manager to assist with these just assist her with these things, but but the children even are somewhat reluctant to start that conversation. And so Nancy and Leah are going to tell us more about how we can bring them in as really an independent third party, more objective voice in the room to hopefully, not nudge the client a little bit towards bringing in that assistance. And this next scenario, it involves an even more challenging set of facts because the client did not have any estate planning in place. So Liz, why don't you go over your scenario here?
Sure. So the facts for my scenario are listed. It was a real life case. I tried to change a lot of the names, but I'm sure Nancy Fagan recognizes a lot of the information because she was involved in this case and was able to calm down things tremendously. So, and it's surprising how many cases we're seeing exactly like this, just change the parties' names. It may be the wife or the husband who was the financial person. In this case, it was a long-term, first-time marriage, 2 adult sons. The wife did the financial piece. And at a certain point, she began making really bad decisions. For example, she wrote 2 checks for $1 million each, to one at a grocery store and one to a nurse at a doctor's office. And luckily, neither cashed those checks. She had a relatively new Lexus SUV, and then she just went over to Lexus and bought a new one. This case culminated with the wife in the hospital telling the doctor that her husband had beat her up. Now, that didn't happen, but because of the claims, Adult Protective Services got involved. And like I said, Elder Tree came in and calmed things down tremendously. But because they didn't have any financial planning, estate planning documents, the first thing that happened is that the husband wasn't able to take any required minimum distributions by the end of the tax year, and we had to do a guardianship. The guardianship proceeding removed Mary's right to vote, her right to a driver's license, to possess firearms. She couldn't change her marital status. She can't move from the state without court permission. The other thing that was interesting in this particular case is that the husband was a World War II veteran, and he had firearms in his home, knew how to use them, and the court said that he had to remove them from the home, which is very surprising, and I don't know that the court has the authority to do that. Regardless, now that the guardianship petition and order has been entered, the husband has to divide everything in half. He has to keep track of every cent he spends and then divide them in half in order to account to the court on an annual basis to get approval as the conservator. So that's just the ongoing task, which is a real pain in the neck. But the total legal and court fees after we were done and got the court order was over $40,000. If they had done estate planning, this wouldn't have been necessary.
That is a good segue into Nancy's presentation on care management. So Nancy, we'll turn it over to you.
Great. Hi, everybody. So what we'd like to do today is to give you a little bit of a framework around how folks end up deciding to use care management and how we can be helpful in a few different scenarios. Of course, I'm sure with your clients as well as with our clients and Liz and Leah and Melinda's, what everybody wants when they age is to remain independent. They all come to us saying they want to stay in their home. They don't want to be a burden on their family. And they want to be treated, of course, with dignity and with respect. The care management side of things today, I'm going to explain a little bit about how we go about accomplishing those goals for folks and transition them through the different phases of decision making that may impact their ability to meet those goals for themselves. We'll also want to talk to you a little bit about the financial impact, because clearly with your frame of reference, a lot of the decisions that your clients are making where a care manager may become involved have a significant impact on the ability for you to then round out the assumptions related to how we can make sure that they are financially viable in the long term and can achieve the goals that they're saying. Next. So what are some of the barriers that we see? Oftentimes, people will come to us not having communicated with their family, with the people that care about them, exactly what's going on, because they're either embarrassed or they're worried about losing their independence. It may be that you are seeing your clients and watching some of the disintegration of some of these physical or cognitive challenges, and they may be more comfortable talking to you about it than they would to their own family. So oftentimes there's a lack of understanding about the impact of what decisions they're making in the short and in the long term. And so when we're creating a care plan for a family, what we're looking at is the here and now, and what we're looking at is how we anticipate how the evolution of what's happening may impact them from a physical perspective, as well as from a financial perspective. And in many cases, we're encouraging them to include family and friends in that discussion at the appropriate time. Again, oftentimes we'll see a financial planner or a lawyer may know more about the actual situation than their daughter or their son or their neighbor does. Great, next. So with care management, there's an organization called the Aging Life Care Association, ALCA. And if you go online, you can actually find an aging life care manager in your immediate area. Eldertree itself is the largest care management company in Northern Virginia and the metropolitan DC area that primarily handles Northern Virginia. And we have 14 care managers. So all of our care managers come with what you will normally see within the Aging Life Care Association, people who have been working in long-term care in different capacities for many, many years. You can't just come out of college and become a care manager. You have to have a pretty significant high-level frame of reference and the ability to go through a number of hours, usually between 2 and 3 years of full-time work with oversight from a certified care manager before you can then sit for a test and be certified. A care manager who is certified with the Aging Life Care Association is also going to have to then commit to ongoing continuing education units and then renew their license every 3 years. So the goals of a care manager are to assess and monitor a situation, take a look at the thing from 30,000 feet all the way down to the real micro level of what's happening, helping a family to plan and problem solve around a particular situation, or to look at the thing from a more bigger picture. We educate and we advocate for ongoing programs related to how we can help senior citizens in general and folks who are living with a detrimental physical or cognitive impairment. Some clients are as young as 18 at Eldertree, and our oldest client is 109. So what we're looking at is really a broad spectrum of advocacy along the lifespan. We're looking at life care planning and what do you need in order to be able to successfully accomplish the goals that you've set for yourself. And as your physical or cognitive or financial situation is changing, where are those triggers that we need to then adjust to the next level of that plan? Reaching consensus is something that is very large for us. All of us are trained mediators. We work to help families to feel okay about the situation, work to creatively and calmly help the senior citizen be okay with this transition that's happening in their life. Of course, we get involved with crisis management. Many of our clients start with us in crisis. They're not my favorite. I love it when somebody comes to us and says, hey, I'd like to think about what my life is going to be like in 15 years and how can I make sure that I'm planning and preparing. But truth be told, a lot of our clients do come to us following a fall or a critical care incident where we are their first touch point while they're still at the hospital. And we're helping them to conceptualize what that future will look like for them going forward. And then, of course, we've got ongoing support that is done. Ongoing support is for those folks who maybe don't have family members that live nearby. They are sometimes under guardianship. They've come to us through maybe adult protective services or not having the support systems in place that a typical family would provide to them. And as a result, we are more present on an ongoing basis to make sure that everything related to their safety, their health, and their well-being is taken care of. Okay, next. All right, so working with an aging life care manager, you should have anyone who is serving in this role is going to want the individual to lead their best life. They're going to be looking at the situation from a very personal perspective. So there's no prescription to how you go about being an aging life care manager. There's no prescription for what our clients' lives look like. We're not pushing a certain mode of how they live their lives. We're not saying you have to live in assisted living, you have to live at home. An aging life care manager should not be compensated by anyone except the client. So most aging life care managers, including Eldertree, charge on an hourly basis. We charge $195 an hour at our organization. That's pretty standard for the Washington, D.C. area. And we bill on 6-minute increments, a lot like a lawyer. So to put that in real terms for you, for most of our clients, when we start in a crisis, like we talked about, you can usually expect between 5 and 10 hours of crisis management, followed by then generally about 1 hour a week to keep the situation stabilized. Any of the folks that we work with, of course, we're communicating on an ongoing basis with the folks who are identified by the client. Our client is the elder or the individual who is at risk, and are the people that surround that individual, whether it be family members, neighbors, guardians in some cases, are part of that kind of circle of trust. They are going to be receiving information on a regular basis, but they have to be approved by the elder. If the elder is not cognitively intact, then they're going to be receiving information from the power of attorney that's hopefully been established ahead of time, or from the guardian saying it's okay for that person to receive that information about the intricacies of what's going on for our client's care. Care management is typically available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So if something goes awry at 1 o'clock in the morning, we are heading off to the emergency room with our client. And so at Eldertree, we have a care manager that's on call. We take call on a weekly basis. And when we do that, we are available after hours, but during the day, we have somebody who is picking up who's more familiar with the case. Continuity of care and, of course, cost projections are things that just roll into any care planning that's done. Looking at the ALCA standards of practice, as well as the code of ethics that we live by, look for somebody, as I said before, who is certified within care management. If you go on that Aging Life Care Association website, you will be able to find an ALCA certified care manager, and they will give you details about what scope of business these folks have, as well as whether and how long they've been doing this. Okay, next. So as care managers, we are really putting together a puzzle. Each new client that we have is, I like to consider it a puzzle because I feel like I'm learning a little bit here and there as we're getting to know a family. Sometimes when we're starting off in crisis, we are on overdrive and gaining as much information as we possibly can. For clients who aren't starting in crisis, it's nice because we can go in with a kind of baseline assessment and begin developing that relationship, not slowly over time, but we spend a couple of hours talking through what this person would like for themselves, what the family would like, but we pretty quickly get into some specific puzzle pieces related to financially, of course, what can this person afford? What they would like is sometimes driven not by how we can accomplish that by how much money they have to be able to put towards the situation. When a financial planner is involved, we sometimes will have them included in that initial discussion if that's what the elder would like to have involved. But the financial assumptions drive really what it is that you can afford related to your ongoing care. And so what we try to do is time it so that we are planning in advance of a particular situation not being an option because financially you can no longer afford it. So the first thing we start with is how much can you afford on a monthly basis? How much do you have in pension money coming in, Social Security? And then do you own your home? Are you working off of a trust? So there's a lot of detail related to that we talk about them with. From the physical needs perspective, sometimes it's evident when we first go in that their space is not working for them the way it needs to. Those physical needs will immediately impact whether or not they can be safe in their environment. But there's also a lot that can be done, and I'm going to talk a little bit about that later, about changing their physical environment in order for it to meet their needs. Their cognitive state is one of the really big puzzle pieces. Many of our clients are either currently experiencing cognitive challenges or are in the process of getting diagnosed as experiencing cognitive challenges. And so really honoring that and making sure that that individual is uplifted and that we're not highlighting what they can't do. The goal is always for people to lead their best life and for them to be able to then engage in the things that give them joy and to gently provide a support system around them for the things that are either not as safe as they could be or that are becoming more difficult and causing frustration and impacting their quality of life. Okay, next. Okay, so for this particular slide, I'm actually going to add a little bit more detail to it for you. Really, most folks who are looking at where they're going to live are thinking about things in 4 different ways. The first is, I want to stay home. We talked about that before as being most seniors' ultimate goal. Here in the DC area, if you're talking about staying at home with some support, you can generally expect to pay between $25 and $30 an hour. We use a home care agency. We recommend a home care agency, many different agencies, as a matter of fact, not just one, based on the location of where the senior lives and what their needs are. And those home care agencies, the reason we trend towards that rather than hiring somebody privately is because it allows you then to have somebody who's accountable that the care manager can engage with to make sure that things are being done the right way and that we can coach, as well as making sure that the liability is covered. There's a background check that's been done. There's an opportunity to, if something's stolen, if the individual is injured during a transfer, we're not going to be having the family to be held liable from a legal perspective. Sometimes we work with lawyers if there are individuals that are private and not affiliated with an agency, and there'll be a contract that's actually executed so that the folks can keep the people that they want. But we always want to have some kind of barriers around how they're engaging with that home care support. So we talked about $25 to $30 an hour. If you need 24-hour care, what that means for you is about $20,000 a month. If you don't have long-term care insurance, that's a lot of money. Most long-term care insurance policies are about between $7,000 and $9,000 a month reimbursable. So sometimes folks can take a look at a live-in option. A live-in is appropriate if that individual can have 8 hours of uninterrupted sleep at night. And if that's the case, then you can almost cut those costs in half. So working with care management, one of the first things and most important things that we do when we enter a new situation is make sure that you're spending the money and the time wisely, because home care is the biggest expense that you're going to experience. Some folks come to us saying they want to move to an independent living situation. For those folks in Northern Virginia, they're thinking about places like Heritage Hunt or some of the over 55 senior living communities that are in the area. I gotta be honest, this is not a good option for most people, because all you're doing is selling your house, moving to some place that becomes more physically appropriate for you, but it doesn't provide for you the opportunity to age in place without having to spend an awful lot of money on that home care that we're talking about. So either, unless your home cannot be renovated or cannot change, usually what we're recommending is an alternative to that, which will have more of a continuum in place. Okay, assisted living. Assisted living is an interesting model. When I first got started doing this 25, 30 years ago, assisted living was just evolving. First continuing care retirement community that I ran over in Maryland, they actually didn't even have assisted living. You aged in place and then you moved over to your nursing home when you needed it. So assisted living is kind of like the Wild West, depending upon the community that you're looking at, depending upon the level of need that you have, a care manager is going to be guiding that client to the appropriate assisted living. They can cost anywhere from $5,000 a month for a small group home up to $12,000 or $14,000 a month for one of those Cadillac models where you're living in a beautiful home or in a really super luxury apartment style. Truth be told, assisted living is a very personal mode of living. And so what we try to do is marry together the level of cognitive need, the socialization, and how this person moves through their day so that they can live and age in place. Here in Virginia, you can age in place as long as you do not need something really significant like tube feeding, or as long as you don't need 3 people to help you get out of bed during the morning. The next one is long-term care or nursing home. People end up in a long-term care environment, usually following a critical care incident. They end up there for rehab sometimes. They will come out of the hospital, and we will be working with that hospital discharge planner as care managers for our clients to make sure that we choose the nursing home to perform the rehab that is the highest possible quality and where we know that this individual is going to be able to get the level of rehabilitation that they need. That's covered by Medicare. The first 21 days are covered completely by Medicare. And then after that, from day 22 up to 100 days, it's a sliding scale of diminished return where you pay more and more on your copay. Assuming that people finish up their rehab and are able to go back, they then head either back to their assisted living or to their independent home or independent living apartment. Some folks end up going to the nursing home under what we call long-term care. So you're either in rehab or you're in long-term care. A lot of folks don't realize that rehab is actually in a nursing home for the most part, unless you're going to an acute setting, like Encompass or someplace where you're just doing something very specific for a very brief period of time. So the nursing homes in our area are all private pay, of course. They are covered generally by, well, they are covered if you have long-term care insurance. You can spend your long-term care insurance dollars there. Generally, they're between $12,000 and $14,000 a month. And if you need Medicaid, you're going to need to go in for a period of time private pay, if at all possible. So when we talk about planning ahead and knowing what people's physical needs are, if we're anticipating that their needs are going to exceed the ability for them to be cared for at home, then we are looking at, oftentimes with Melinda and Liz, the ability to know at what point in time is this individual going to be eligible for Medicaid, and we need to time it in such a way that they are in that long-term care bed before Medicaid goes into force. And so there's a lot of gamesmanship around this area of the care planning, and there's a giant financial impact. So any good care management organization should be able to talk very fluidly with you about how that is going to happen and which communities are going to be the most appropriate and provide the highest quality of care. But coming to the situation, like worst case scenario, we had somebody come to us last week. They had spent all their money. They only made enough money to afford not even the assisted living for $5,000 a month. Their level of need was significantly higher than assisted living. and they didn't own their home. And so we were looking at something as Medicaid eligible now. Timing wise, if you know that your clients are going to run out of money at a certain time, knowing when they get down to about $100,000 to $150,000, then I know Liz is going to talk about this a little bit more later, but that timing piece involving a care manager, involving the Medicaid planning lawyer is really important so that these folks can have the best possible quality of life. And I'm actually going to skip over continuing care retirement community and talk about that in a couple minutes. Okay, so this goes into a lot of detail here, more words on my slide than I would normally want, but I think it's important to pay attention to this. If you see something, say something. From a physical perspective, there are chronic conditions, there are acute conditions, and then there are things that a healthcare professional needs to get involved in immediately. As care managers, we are looking at really 3 different distinct areas. We're looking at what's called an activity of daily living, which are your basic things that you're going to need assistance with from a home care aide or within assisted living or a nursing home. Those are the real simple ones: eating, bathing, dressing, walking, transferring, toileting, and grooming. Chances are, if your client is coming to your office, you're not seeing that they're having difficulty with that. Where there may be difficulty embedded in their life that is not so evident to people outside of their immediate family structure are what we call instrumental activities of daily living. That's where it becomes harder for them to organize their day, creating meals for themselves. Maybe they're not eating on a regular basis, or the refrigerator is empty. Shopping or getting out and figuring out how to do their laundry. They're wearing the same clothes over and over again. They can't remember when they've got doctor visits, or they miss doctor visits. Money management is something Leah's going to talk about, but we refer to Leah and her company and other money management companies very frequently, because what we find is one of the first things that goes is the ability to pay your own bills. And then transportation and driving. Many of our clients come to us with cognitive impairment and should not be driving anymore. And so the role of the care manager is to serve as kind of the concert master to help all of these pieces that they may have created for themselves in the past to work collaboratively. So if you've got powers of attorney that you've established, if you have a trust or a will, are all of these pieces connected to one another so that the individuals that you trust are now helped to become your trusted person, and somebody who's going to be doing these things from a distance while still honoring the fact that our clients have the ability to continue to have a self-directed life and enjoy life. The last thing we want is for somebody who's coming in a power of attorney role to immediately take over the rights of all of our clients. We want people to feel supported. Okay, continuing care retirement community. I wanted to touch on this because we have a lot of financial planners that come to us and they may have a client who is thinking that they want to go to a continuing care retirement community. This is actually my background. Before coming to Eldertree, I ran a large continuing care retirement community, and I also was the associate director for the accreditation commission for these groups. So if you ever have any questions about what a CCRC is about, know one thing: the contract says it all, okay? You want to take a look at that contract as a financial planner. We want to make sure that you are aware of all of the intricacies about how somebody moves through the continuum. In a CCRC, you've got an independent living component, an assisted living component, memory care oftentimes, and skilled nursing. The skilled nursing is the rehab part, and it's also the long-term care part. The continuum can be accessed depending upon that contract at different phases. Some continuing care retirement communities, you can only go in independent. Some let you go in assisted, some let you go in nursing. And so within the Washington, D.C. area, we've got some really phenomenal CCRCs. All of them have an entrance fee. They're amortizing that over the life expectancy of the person who's moving in. Sometimes you'll have a couple where one person will get the contract for the CCRC and the other person is just along for the ride and paying privately. for any of the services that they're getting. The contracts are going to vary on a month-by-month basis based on how much you paid up front and how much you're going to pay on a monthly basis. Most people are coming having already owned a home. Most people who are choosing a CCRC have over $1 million in the bank. As the person who would see these contracts cross my desk, there's a component of, do you fit physically, do you fit socially and emotionally, and do you fit financially? Even though there's multiple different kinds of contracts, each of these contracts is really cost neutral depending upon which one the client picks. The community is going to essentially make the same amount of money, assuming that that actuarial chart is not completely blown out of the water on one end of the spectrum or the other. So I would definitely encourage you, if you have more questions about that, to give us a call. Okay, so for care managers, reasons to potentially give us a call or give a care manager a call: if there are multiple medical or physical issues that are new, if there are ongoing psychological issues which are now impacting good decision making. And again, you know your clients for a long time, and so that baseline as it changes is going to be evident to you. If you or the family is telling you that they're unable to live independently on their own, or that their environment is not safe. Sometimes I know financial planners go to their clients' houses. If all of a sudden you're walking into a hoarding environment, now's the time to potentially give a care manager a call. If they have limited or no family resources, they're kind of solo out there, they're very similar to what the first scenario was that Melinda gave, where, you know, husband maybe has passed away and this person is relying upon neighbors or other trusted people who are just really burned out and exhausted. If they are at odds with their family. Many of our clients come to us having been in a blended family, meaning you've got a new marriage and kids from one family and kids from another family, and they're arguing with one another. And so when we come in to deal with the financial and the medical side of things, oftentimes we are noticing that this is not going to be something that can be handled, and we're talking to a lawyer to see whether or not there needs to be some type of legal intervention and introducing the family appropriately. Or sometimes we work with folks who are just wanting a little bit of education. Care managers can go in and just do an hour or two of education with a family in order to help folks to get what they need in the long term. Okay, next. The majority of aging life care managers work with older adults. I mentioned before that Elder Tree is very specific in the fact that we also will work with younger folks. Our client, who is 18 right now, is just turned 18 and has pretty significant mental health issues and is currently trying to figure out how they're going to navigate that with her parents. And so we're that kind of buffer that helps the person to plan their life, be heard, and help mom and dad to do the essentially evolve into the role that they need. A lot of our clients as well may be older adults who have a certain amount of physical need, but they are also helping to care for, or who have always cared for, maybe a younger child in their 40s or 50s who have long-term intellectual disabilities, Down syndrome, autism, Asperger's. And so we're really care managing the entire family to make sure everybody gets what they need. But the key here is to make sure that if you're not sure that this is an appropriate client for care management, you can always pick up the phone and call us, and we'll spend 30 minutes, an hour on the phone kind of brainstorming with you, free of charge. Okay, and then lastly, I wanted to talk quickly about COVID. COVID has really thrown the elder care industry, of course, up in the air. We at Elder Tree, I would say 70% of our clients were living in either assisted living or in a nursing home at the beginning of COVID. That's now turned on its ear. We actually have started an assisted living at home program where we are able to provide pretty much everything that assisted living provides in somebody's home, utilizing the wisdom of the team of folks that are on the Elder Tree squad. More people are wanting to age in place, And there's definitely a decreased attention to chronic medical conditions. And so for those folks that we have that are living at home, none of them have gotten COVID, which we're really, really happy about. But we also knew that initially we had to kind of tamp down on some of this happen naturally in the elder care industry. For example, home care aides are not paid a lot. And so there's a high likelihood that a home care aide, even within a nursing home or an assisted living community before COVID started, was leaving one job and going to another. That doesn't happen anymore. For our home-based clients, that is not an option. So we are working with home care agencies that can assure us that when our client is seeing their home health care aide, that aide has not been anywhere else. And the same thing goes for care managers. We don't go from one client to another client now because we don't want to carry COVID. So it's an evolving situation. There's a wonderful group in the metropolitan DC area that is working collaboratively and having webinars and talking to one another about creative ways that we're going about making sure that our clients are getting what they need during COVID. And then the last kind of tip that I would give you before I turn it over to Leah is we always have in our clients' houses a grab and go binder. Even if you don't use a care manager, I would encourage your families to have a grab and go binder, which includes all of their legal documents, all of their financial information that they may need in the short term, medications that folks take, any allergies that people have, a list of physicians, a list of the people that are important to them and how to get in touch, and any likes and dislikes that they have, so that if there is a critical care incident or an emergency, the daughter or the home care aides can grab that binder and head to the hospital. So thank you. I'd like to turn it over now to Leah, who's going to talk to you about everyday money management.
All right. Thank you, Nancy. And thank you, everyone, for being here today. My name is Leah Nichaman, and I am the owner of Everyday Money Management. We have been in business for 14 years, and we are also the largest of our kind in the Washington, D.C. area. We have a team of 13 of us, and 11 of whom are daily money managers. And we serve Maryland, Virginia, and DC. I don't know, I think some of you, I know some of you, and I think that you, some of you know what a daily money manager does, but for those of you who do not, most people think of us as bill payers or bookkeepers, and we do those things, but more than that, we really are financial professionals that help our clients stay on top of their financial lives. And as I'll discuss a little bit more in detail, we also help their professionals to get things done for and with their clients. Before I get into all the different things that we do, I do want to go over some of the things that you as a professional advisor, or you may hear from family members, things that you might see happening with a client that may indicate a need for somebody to come and help manage the money, whether it's a family member or a hired person like a daily money manager. So for those of you who are CPAs, missing tax documents or no tax documents at all, missing deadlines, not getting e-file authorization signed, that type of thing you might see. You may see that people are not responsive. You send something that needs to be signed and it just sits in a pile somewhere in their home. And somebody has to go in and fish that out and get it signed and returned to you, or you have to try to get the client to come to your office. For those of you who may be working with younger seniors, maybe people who are just before retirement or just immediately at the beginning of retirement, spending is sometimes an issue, and often those folks can't accurately describe to you or give you data on how much they spend. And it's usually because of inattention or lack of organization. So this is where a daily money manager could be quite helpful. I'm not going to go over all of these, but family members in particular will notice piles of paper, uncashed checks. We do work very closely with care managers, and care managers are also often, we're in the home with them, they are in the home, and so we see things lying about. And I just have one prop that I wanted to show you, because I am working with a care manager for a client who is not, doesn't have a lot of family support. This is a pile. She called me and said, Leah, there's a lot of uncashed checks at his house. Can you go and check it out? So these are all of his uncashed checks. They total about $34,000. So many of those checks are stale, and right now we're in the process of getting them reissued. And most of them, I believe, will be reissued. But if nobody handled that at all, that's a lot of money to leave on the table. So a lot of times we are helping our clients to save money or to recoup money or to get out of some sort of a pickle that they may have gotten themselves into. We also see people paying bills inaccurately, like the woman who paid $1 million to the grocery store, that kind of thing. We see those kinds of things. Sometimes clients using credit cards in ways that they never used to. These might be red flags for some external pressure for money, so some sort of financial exploitation. Anybody who's in the home will notice if they're getting lots and lots of calls from either solicitors or creditors, because the phone just rings incessantly. And of course, big red flag. I'm sure if any of us heard this from a client that they had a new friend who was helping them, we might be concerned about that and would want to look into it. Next. Melinda. Thank you. Thanks. Okay, so what do we do? Well, of course, there's bill paying. You will see it down there on the list. But in addition to that, we organize tax records. We create budgets. We will do cash flow management with our clients. So if you have a client who is constantly calling you, asking for $10,000 here and $20,000 there, we will try to get that into a much more organized system where we figure out with them how much they really need, and maybe it comes in automatically, quarterly, and that you're not being asked to sell something right away in order to generate cash for a client. It can be planned and executed with the help of the advisor and the daily money manager working together for this client. We are doing a lot of income and expense tracking in Quicken. We're doing helping people maintain their files, clean out their files, get rid of a lot of paper. We are keeping eagle eyes on their statements, looking for fraud, making sure that no one, whether it's some club they inadvertently joined through QVC, or whether it's their nephew who seems to be, helping himself to their money. We're looking for all those kinds of things, and I'm sorry to report that we do find it. Not a lot, but we do find that family members do take money, and caregivers, hired caregivers sometimes take money. And it's generally relatively small amounts, but we catch it. And that person is either fired, or if they're a family member, they're on notice. And we have had one case where the family member is being prosecuted in the district. So we are looking to protect our client all the time by keeping an eye on that, on the data. The thing I really want to stress here, go back just one thing, is that generally we are willing and able to work in stressed and challenging family situations. So a lot of times family members think nobody's going to be able to convince my mom that she needs somebody, but you'd be surprised. Now, we can't get over everyone's resistance, but it's definitely worthwhile to have an outside third party come in to try to convince somebody that we could be helpful in order to get over that resistance. And we often can do what an adult child cannot get their family member to do. So when you're thinking about what is the best way to get over resistance, we find that when a trusted advisor, somebody who's already been with them for a long time, their attorney, their accountant, their financial advisor, who's been with them a long time, recommends that we come in, and then they're more willing to allow us to come in, and we have ways of pitching it so that it sounds more like aren't they lucky they're getting a personal assistant, as opposed to you can't do this anymore and somebody has to come in and make sure you don't make a mistake. So there's a real difference in how I think family members sometimes present it to their family and how we might present it to that person. Okay, next. Okay, so one of the things that we are really big on is data, as you can imagine, financial data, and documentation. So one of the things that we do in our company is we create something called the whole life list. And there's no magic to it. Like, it's a Word document and an Excel workbook. And you could use any list. It doesn't even matter. You could use one of the published books out there. One of my DMM colleagues wrote a book called Memory Bank. It's a workbook to do the exact same thing. And so, but what we do is we spend time documenting who's who and what's what and what's where. So where is the military discharge papers? Where is the safe deposit box key? Who are the key players in my financial and legal life? Who helps take care of the home? What's the situation with the lease on my car? When is it up? Where are the passwords? And how could a trusted person holding POA get access to those kinds of things? Even though we are professionals and very organized, we actually found this task to be very daunting. We would try to do it at the very beginning of our engagement, and it was really hard. It's a lot of information. So now, as you can see in this graphic, we've split it up now and do a little bit each month over the course of the year. You are more than welcome to take this and please try to create your own list and just do a little bit each month. It's probably one session a month. Sitting down, and you might have to make a phone call or two or get online to something to check. And then just document that, because that information goes a whole long way toward helping somebody not only be prepared for something bad to happen, and it's this type of thing that would go in that grab and go binder, but more than that, it helps them feel prepared, helps them feel more in control. And I say that we are a change agent in this way, because for many people, this is a real shift to document all this stuff, get it out of their heads and out of their files, and to put it in a place and then share it with family members is a big change for a lot of seniors. And we're helping them to move to a place of transparency, which is where they need to be. Okay, so if you want to consider hiring a daily money manager, I just want to talk a little bit about how it works. So the first thing is usually an advisor will ask the client, or will call me to vet us, or will send a family member to us, or send the client to us to call and to ask information about how we do it and how much it costs, etc. And so when I'm talking to folks, I'm asking why they want a daily money manager, and are they willing to have a daily money manager, especially if I'm talking to an adult child. Are they willing to have a daily money? Is their parent willing? And also, what is their cognitive status in their opinion? Are they able to participate with us? Because as Nancy said at the beginning, people want to remain independent. They want to be to still have some agency in their life. And so one reason why families hire us or have their parents hire us is because they want their parent to feel like they're still independent, still in control, still managing their affairs. They just need a little bit of help. And so we want to try to understand everybody's motivation, the family member, the advisors, as well as the client themselves. And of course, we're looking at location. Before COVID, we went in person once or twice a month to see many of our clients. Of course, now we've shifted to doing a lot of things online. We give our clients envelopes, they send us their mail. We have some paper-based clients, as you can imagine, and they send us their paperwork and we process it in our office. So, and then we're sometimes on Zoom, sometimes on the phone, or doing a little drive-by. So we found ways to serve all our clients, and everybody's adjusting really well to it. If somebody was not local, we can serve them remotely. I had an inquiry from Colorado the other day, somebody looking for a bookkeeper, and so we could serve them remotely. But if somebody is a senior and maybe somebody really does need to go in person, and it wasn't local, we would help them find a daily money manager. Similar to ALCA, the American Association of Daily Money Managers has a Find a DMM tool on their website, and you can put in a zip code and figure out if there's a DMM nearby. Okay, and then we are assessing ability to pay, because we want to understand whether somebody can afford our services at an appropriate level. So we charge $125 an hour, and our clients, if all they're looking for is somebody to pay 5 bills a month, we are probably not the right solution for them. And I'm happy to talk to them and talk to them about what might be a good solution for that, but we're going to look for some other solution for somebody who either doesn't want to pay or can't afford our services at the level that we think or that we can agree is appropriate. Next slide. Okay, working with a daily money manager, there is a sort of a natural progression of the engagement. At the beginning, the first 3 months or so, we're doing discovery. We're creating that whole life list. We're doing a budget. We're cleaning up a lot of paperwork. We're figuring out what to do with the $34,000 worth of stale checks. We're helping our client to, establish some systems that we can work with them on. And of course, we're just taking care of stuff that's overdue or has become a mess, reinstating insurance, that kind of thing. The second step, and sometimes this happens at the beginning too, is that we're streamlining. If somebody has 20 credit cards, we hopefully will develop a relationship where we can say, 3 credit cards would be just fine. And we try to work with people. Of course, we can't force anybody to do something they don't want to do, but we gently sort of nudge them, if you will, to reorganize their financial life in a way that's easier for them, it's easier for us to help them with, and cheaper if we don't have to manage as many accounts. And also it makes it much easier for the person holding their power of attorney or the person who's going to be the executor of their estate to handle that if there's just not so many accounts. So we're really helping people to automate, to consolidate. And then of course, when we're in maintenance mode, we're visiting or receiving packets from them regularly. If we're not visiting at tax time, we're helping them get their tax data together, and we are continuing to maintain that whole life list. Okay, next slide. Okay, so while we're doing all of this, we're not doing it in isolation. We never want to be in isolation. We always want to be on a team. And so a lot of times we are, and really I would say care managers go in the white circle here as well, because generally care managers, daily money managers, and home health personnel, we're the ones who are in the home mostly. And all the other advisors may come every once in a while, but mostly they're operating in their offices. And so a lot of times we are a conduit of information. We're a liaison. You send something to us, we'll make sure it gets signed. Once it gets signed, we make sure it gets back to you. Our client needs information from you. We call you on the phone with the client, perhaps, and facilitate that conversation so they can get the information they need. So a lot of what's happening is we are making sure that you know what's going on with the client, we know what's going on with the area that you handle for them, and maybe there's a larger team where the accountant and the attorney and the advisor and the family, they're all communicating with each other about what's best. And I really think that outcomes are best for seniors when they have a team like that. The dream team, it's really the care manager, the daily money manager, the attorney, the accountant, and the financial advisor, really, and then family members. I mean, that if people have a team like that, all working together on their behalf, the quality of their aging experience, I think, will be very good, and a lot fewer things will go wrong. Okay, so who do we serve? Mostly at Everyday Money Management, we are serving senior citizens. We have about 130 clients in our business right now, and I would say that we have 85% of them are over 80. It's not necessarily an age thing, but mostly 60 to 80-year-olds don't need us so much, but over 80 and having some mild to moderate cognitive impairment, then that's when they may need somebody. We also serve people with disabilities, particularly mental illness, various mental illnesses. And sometimes those two things go together. A child with mental illness may have lived at home for the last 50 years, and now mom or dad needs to go to an assisted living, and then, you know, a whole team of people has to try to figure out what's going to happen and how it's going to get paid for. But we also do serve younger folks, busy professionals. In my business, we don't serve small business owners, but other DMMs do business bookkeeping and helping business owners. We have on occasion helped a young person learn how to manage money. We can help military personnel, veterans, people who travel a lot, or if the legal agent lives out of the country. We have a couple of cases like that where we're in country helping with things that are harder for them to do. Many of our clients are high net worth individuals, although not all. And for those, we also are helping people who have a lot going on, multiple homes, multiple cars, staff who need to be paid. They have multiple trusts that have to be kept straight and things, and they have multiple LLCs where things are in those LLCs. So we are also very familiar with handling clients who have a lot going on in their financial lives. And then of course, people in some sort of a life transition, and that may be a temporary thing where we just help somebody get organized and get on their way and they're in this new chapter of their life, or they may keep us on to help. Okay. I did want to just touch on our association and our profession because it's not well known. It is a little over 20 years old officially, and we have about 700 members of the association in 47 states and DC. All members of our association have had their backgrounds checked, and they get checked every 2 years. In my company, we're on constant monitoring, so every month our background check company is checking. We have been working very hard on professionalizing the industry, and one of the things that we brought in about a decade ago was the Certified Daily Money Manager program. And it's very similar to ALCA. In order to become a CDMM, you have to have 1,500 hours of service. And usually a lot of daily money managers are part-time. And so that's maybe 3 years of working as a DMM in order to get your 1,500 hours. And then we sit for a surprisingly difficult exam. And then we get continuing education credits in order to recertify every 3 years. We have a code of ethics, standards of practice, and we are right now writing best practices. And most of us are insured by Lloyd's of London, a policy specific for daily money managers. But if you are vetting a DMM, please make sure that they have some liability insurance, if they have employees, that they are bonded, and that all the employees have their backgrounds checked. And ideally members of the association. They don't actually have to be a CDMM. There's great daily money managers who are not CDMMs, but it's really important that somebody do a little due diligence on the daily money manager before hiring. I'd also just wanted to talk about the background of daily money managers. Mostly people come to this as a second or a third career. They were bankers, trust officers, lawyers, CPAs, social workers. They come from a lot of different backgrounds. What is similar for all of us is that we want to be in a service profession. We want to help people, and that we're very good with data, good with Excel.
Leah, you seem to have frozen up on us. There she is.
Now it says my internet connection is unstable, but I'll just say them, is that daily money managers do more than paying bills. That's the first thing. We do a whole lot more than paying bills. And that anyone could use a daily money manager, not just seniors. We really can serve people all across the age spectrum. And that most important for all of us is that we support and facilitate all of your work. So we are there to help you be able to do the best job you can do for your client. Thank you.
Thank you, Leah. and Nancy for all of that information. And for those of you who have not ever worked with a care manager or a daily money manager to help with the needs of your clients, hopefully now you have a better idea as to what, how they can help and how to engage them in the process. So for our last 10-15 minutes here or so, and then we'll try to answer any additional questions that come in. Of course, we're not going to spend a lot of time talking about going over the various estate planning documents and why clients should do estate planning. We know we're preaching to the choir when it comes to that. So we wanted to, especially I wanted Liz to talk about, for our clients who do not have an estate plan, the crisis planning that then they and their families are ultimately facing, which involves either a court appointed guardian, a court appointed, sometimes it involves an involuntary commitment hearing for clients with dementia or mental illness, and then of course a death that requires court supervised probate, all of which are extremely time consuming, burdensome, and expensive for the client and for their family, not only financially, but also emotionally. So I am fortunate to work with my partner, Liz Gray, because she specializes in guardianships. I do not handle guardianships myself. So Liz, why don't you walk us through kind of the steps and what's involved when a client does not have a financial power of attorney in place, does not have a healthcare power of attorney in place, and so the courts, it's necessary to involve the courts to appoint those people to make decisions on their behalf.
Okay, well, I'm going to skip the factors that the court looks at because Melinda had said that we're just going to go over the sort of the procedures. This is if somebody doesn't have powers of attorney, I mean, it's medical directives, trusts, or they're not good documents, they don't work. So the procedure I'm going to talk about, I'm going to use the word guardianship, but I'm including in that a conservator. So just as a quick reminder, the guardian's the person given the legal power and duty by a court to take care of and manage the personal affairs of another person. The conservator is the person given the legal power and duty by the court to take care of and manage the financial and estate affairs of an incapacitated person. So the procedures for a proceeding in Virginia is that the first thing you need to do is meet with your attorney and obtain an evaluation report. The evaluation report is prepared by a licensed physician, psychologist, or a licensed professional skilled in the assessment and treatment of the physical or mental conditions of the respondent. And it's that last part that allows us sometimes to use care managers to do this evaluation report, if they are a licensed professional and they're skilled in the assessment and treatment of the physical and mental conditions of the respondent. So you prepare and file a petition, and the court immediately appoints a guardian ad litem. We call that person in Virginia the GAL. I don't know why. Some people call it the GAL. A guardian ad litem is a Virginia licensed attorney who's been appointed by the circuit court to represent the interests of the respondent during the guardianship proceedings. This person is not the alleged incapacitated person's attorney. The GAL is the eyes and the ears for the court. So the GAL has to do an investigation, including service of process of the petition and other paperwork on the person, advising the person of their rights. And then the GAL investigates all of the allegations in the petition and prepares a report to give to the judge, opining about whether or not this individual is incapacitated or not, the suitability of the proposed guardians, the suitability of the proposed plan of care for this person, and eventually a bond recommendation. The other thing you need to know about the GAL is that the guardian ad litem's fee is fixed by the court, and it's paid by the petitioner or taxed as part of the incapacitated person's estate. So generally it comes out of the person that's incapacitated's money. After the guardian ad litem has filed the report, you're ready for your hearing before a judge, and the judge signs an order appointing a guardian and conservator, and then you need to qualify. That's where you're going in front of the clerk of the court, raising your right hand and swearing to abide by the laws of Virginia and be a good and honest fiduciary. Your requirements under the guardianship laws are to do an annual report, and then for the conservatorship, you have to do an inventory and an accounting right away within 6 months, and then you have to do annual conservatorship accountings every year.
Thanks, Liz. And we often get the question, what is the average time period that it takes to initiate and complete a guardianship proceeding, and how much does it typically cost?
I would say from start to end, on average, is about 3 months. If you need to do it on an emergency basis, that is doable, but it's not preferred because, of course, it costs more money. Costs for a routine guardianship for the attorney's fees is going to be between $5,000 to $10,000, and then consider that the guardian ad litem's fee comes out of that money too, so add in another $5,000 to $10,000.
And I know oftentimes when the client comes to us or comes to me and I send them to you, it is, again, crisis situation where the parent has fallen. It is usually the adult children or other family members who are coming to us. At that point, the parent has fallen, they're in rehab, they cannot return to their home. And so the first thing is they need to sell the house to get the funds to send them to assisted living. And if there's no financial power of attorney or revocable trust in place, then you're having to initiate this guardianship proceeding, which is not going to happen tomorrow. It's going to be a lengthy and expensive process.
Yep, it's heartbreaking when we have to do those. So the core estate planning documents, briefly, the advanced medical directive is a document that allows you to express your wishes for healthcare choices in circumstances where you're not able to express those wishes. And then the living will is the piece that allows you to state your preferences for end-of-life circumstances or a terminal diagnosis where you anticipate where you're going to reach a point where you cannot make those decisions anymore. And then the healthcare proxy piece is the advanced medical directive piece is the medical power of attorney piece. Another thing that has come up a lot in Virginia lately because of COVID is POLST, which stands for Physician's Order for Life-Sustaining Treatment. This is a medical order that tells everyone the patient's wishes for end-of-life care, including the emergency medical services people. It's something your doctor will talk with you about and get more information in order to figure out where you draw the line. If you do have questions, I'm not really the person to talk to about this. Nancy Fagan would be more of the person to talk to you about any type of POLST. And then the financial power of attorney is the document that allows somebody to make your financial decisions if you're incapacitated. So if you're sick and you can't handle your financial affairs, the power of attorney will step in and that person will step in your shoes and continue to pay your mortgage payment or your bills or all of that kind of stuff that you need taken care of. And I'm going to turn it back to Melinda to go over trusts and wills and that kind of thing.
Thanks, Liz. And we're going to run very quickly because I want to make sure we allow enough time to get to the elder fraud discussion. So again, preaching to the choir to most of you, particularly for our elderly and aging clients, a revocable trust is going to be the better, tool and document to have in place versus just having a will. As most of you know, a revocable trust is much more accepted by financial institutions to allow the successor trustee to step in and take over the management of the trust versus just an agent under a financial power of attorney, because those documents are so ubiquitous and often can be stale. And it's just having a revocable trust is really just a more robust tool, because it's the trust that actually, because of the retitling, that extra step that we go through as part of the funding process, it's the trust and the trustee that actually owns the legal title to the property and can exercise and act with regard to those assets, versus an agent under financial power of attorney. The title remains with the principal. It's the agent who's just acting on the principal's behalf. We often encourage with aging clients to name, an adult child or other trusted friend or individual or corporate trustee as a co-trustee, which then can serve as a second set of eyes and provide, some oversight and management, while still allowing the client, to feel like they're maintaining, control and independence. The other thing we like about revocable trust is you can provide much more detailed direction in the trust document to authorize hiring of a care manager and your preference for home health care, and how you want to be taken care of in the event that you can no longer serve as your own trustee. So that's other planning considerations we go over, which we've already covered a lot of them. Certainly consolidating assets, and making sure that the client's assets are properly retitled into their revocable trust to achieve the objectives that we are, trying to obtain, with, certainly avoiding probate at death, as well as a better tool to plan for incapacity while the client is still alive. We also want to make sure we review and confirm their beneficiary designations, make sure those are in line with the terms of the trust and their overall estate plan. Nancy referred earlier to the grab and go binder, which I think is a great idea. I want my own grab and go binder now. Copy form, but a lot of people, including my mother, has saved everything on a thumb drive, and so that leads also. We want to, when it comes to digital assets, because so many of us do no longer receive paper copies of account statements. The importance of using either an online app like LastPass or Norton. Or just literally, at the very least, keeping a list of all of your passwords, including the password to your phone, your computer. It's extremely important, as Leah knows, when the agent does need to come in or the successor trustee needs to come in and take over things, that they know what accounts are out there and how to access them. We always stress the importance of planning for long-term care, and certainly working with a financial advisor and making sure that the advisor has included those assumptions, whatever contingent they may be, in the overall financial plan, so that, again, as Nancy said, the earlier the better, if in the event, especially if the client is projected to run out of money at some point for their long-term care, that this earlier the better, they come in and they talk with Liz about doing some Medicaid planning to protect whatever assets that they may have left. So so that they don't have to be all spent down, and so they can qualify for Medicaid. One thing we talked about, which I didn't realize, I also always stress the importance of looking into long-term care insurance. And now we have these hybrid type solutions with it's combined with life insurance. But Nancy made a good point, and how she can help when the client actually goes to make a claim, how to properly deal with these quote unquote long-term care gatekeepers at the insurance companies to make sure that the client answers walks through the questions and knows how to answer them properly so that their claim can be approved. We've also already talked about the including the adult children and other family members in the discussion, if possible, so that, for example, with healthcare decisions, we often share the tool, the 5 wishes, with our clients, which is a nice conversation starter for clients to walk through different scenarios in terms of healthcare decisions and how they would want to be cared for, and how they would want their agent to make those important decisions. So I think we have time for this slide that I want to make sure we got to was what to do if you suspect that your client is at risk for elder fraud or abuse. And I think most of you all in the banking and brokerage world are familiar with the FINRA rules that are relatively recent, that at least allow you to, if the client is willing, provide you with a trusted contact person who you can reach out to if you are concerned, if there is some sort of exploitation, or if the client is losing their cognitive abilities. There's also new legislation in Virginia that is just brand new, that went into effect. And Liz, did you want to briefly say?
Sure. That's up at the top. It's the new legislation that permits a financial institution to refuse to execute a transaction, or to delay a transaction, or refuse to disperse funds for a period no longer than 30 business days based on a good faith belief that the transaction or disbursement may involve, facilitate, result in, or contribute to the financial exploitation of an adult. So this is really great news, and it allows the financial people to contact adult protective services if need be, if they do have concerns.
Yeah, and having been in banking before returning to private practice, we came across several of these sorts of situations, whether it was a caregiver, a neighbor, or a new quote unquote friend, as Leah said. And oftentimes it is the financial advisor or Leah, and with her services, as she said, you can see these large sums of money, or maybe they're not all that large, but checks being written to people, and it puts the financial advisor and the bank in somewhat of an awkward situation. So it's nice to have this new Virginia legislation and the relatively new FINRA rules that give advisors some sort of place to turn, in addition to the local county adult protective services, as you mentioned, Liz. And then Nancy, I don't know if you want to briefly just talk about also the local mobile crisis unit and when they might be helpful.
Absolutely. So locally in Maryland and in DC, they actually have a 311 number that if you call that with an emergency related to something with a cognitive impairment, where somebody's exit seeking, kind of like a silver alert, or if there is somebody who's having an emotional crisis and is either talking about suicidal ideation or possibly homicidal ideation, you can call that number and they will send out a specialized team of folks who will go ahead and have a social worker and a policeman and help bridge that person without having to make it feel as if there's a threat to them. So they're specially trained. In Virginia, we are working towards that. They actually are just in the process right now of creating that type of unit. Right now, what we have to work with is something called the Community Service Board, which also has a mobile crisis unit, but it doesn't have that easy 311 catch-all that we're seeing. But I expect that that will happen within the next few months, as a matter of fact. It's just been approved that the Fairfax County and Arlington County police departments are going to begin adding those special mobile crisis units as well. So.
Okay, well, we are at 1:30. We have received several questions which we can respond to offline. So we just wanted to conclude with, you know, I think all of us would agree that having a team of advisors in place particularly for our aging clients and for their families, is always going to be the best result and make all of our jobs easier. And so Nancy and Leah are certainly on our speed dials, and
and you are on ours.
hopefully because it really does take a team. Without that way, we all, as we've said, we can stay in our own lane of expertise, but we know when to bring the additional resources in. And again, in the end, we're making our job easier. We're better serving the client and their families. So with that, we want to thank you all for attending. And again, feel free to contact us with any other questions. And we do look forward to receiving any additional feedback you may have on future webinar topics. But with that, we will wish you a good day, and thanks again for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.